I'm Greg.
And I'm Billy.
And we're the Fuji Guys. We have a great first look video right now for our SL1000. This is, of course, we've had many S-series cameras and they've all featured, quite long zooms. This one is our very first to feature a 50 times zoom. You heard me right, folks, 50 times zoom. So besides having the nice ultra-wide angle and the close-up macro options, you can actually take pictures of the moon and birds and trees and everything like that with this very compact camera with this 50 times zoom. So Billy's in this video is going to kind of go through all of the bells, buttons, and whistles on this. We'll have other videos to talk about the incredible array of top features on a camera like this as well. So, but for starters, Billy, just take us around all the sides of this camera and show us what it's got.
All right, well, first off, a couple of things. It doesn't have any bells. Doesn't make
Okay.
Number two, of
any
course.
Whistles?
You can put that in the audio. But number two, of course, with a 50 times zoom camera, one of the first accessories that you should pick up, especially if you're doing bird watching or any nature photography, is pick up a tripod. Even with the image stabilization that's going to be on these cameras, you really need a tripod, especially at that 50 time focal length, 50 times zoom, just because you can get a lot of motion as it gets magnified in the way you hold the camera, of course. And you want to hold it properly with your palms right there on the lens and your hand holding this grip, right? And using the optical view, the electronic viewfinder. Sorry.
Absolutely.
You don't want to hold a camera like this. If you see it like this, anyone that you see when you're traveling and want to tell them hold it like this, it's going to be a lot more stable. Saying that, let's take a quick now look at the brand new SL1000. In the front of this camera, you got this, again, super EVC Fujinon lens. It's Fuji's own lens company, and it's a 50 times zoom, which is incredible. The lens is a 2.9 to 5.6, so it's relatively fast on the wide angle, and it's a great lens for traveling, especially for safari and for any once-in-a-lifetime trip to Africa or whatnot, where you really want to get close up to the action. But saying that, to this lens, you can also do macro photography and get extremely close physically. So that's the lens on the front of this camera. You got the AF assist lamp, and that helps to focus in low light situations, so it shoots out a beam. On the side of this camera, of course, you got the zoom controls, wide angle telephoto. Again, it indicates a 50 times zoom with the full HD video. This is only one of the zoom controls. I'll show you the other zoom controls that you can do with this camera. And beside it, on top, you have, of course, the pop-up flash. So the camera does have a built-in flash. You also have this little cover which accesses the HDMI port and or USB and AV cable port, so that you can either download or connect it to a HD TV to play back the images, videos. You got your strap area here where you can put your neck straps, right? And if you look at the opposite side, this is where the other strap's going to go, of course, and it is included with this camera. You got this rubberized grip, and something I didn't mention, it has a nice texture, so it doesn't feel like it's a inexpensive camera at all. It has really nice rubberized texture. It doesn't slip on your hand,
Very
so it's
solid.
great for gripping. Then, of course, looking at now the bottom of the camera, you got your tripod socket, which is, it's going to fit any standard tripod out there. You got your built-in speakers, so that when you're doing your HD video, that you can hear your audio. Of course, you got your battery door cover that access the the batteries as well as the memory card. Okay, and now looking at the top of this camera, you got your shutter release button. Pushing halfway down locks the focus, and all the way down takes the photo. You also have your first initial zoom control here, so it's right in your thumb, and you can zoom in, zoom out. But again, like I mentioned, you have that additional side zoom, so if you want more stability, whether you're doing videos or whatnot, or you're actually shooting, looking down, it's a little bit easier to control it that way, or even vertically, allows you to zoom a little bit more comfortably. Below that, you got your continuous button there that gives you access to the different continuous shooting modes. Your exposure compensation button for over and under exposing a scene, over and above what the camera's exposure is selecting. You got your on and off switch, holding it down for a few seconds, turn the cameras on, turn it on. You got your mode dial. This camera, just like any DSLR, has several shooting modes, including even a panoramic mode, which is kind of cool to see, and we'll see that in some of the top features videos. There's also an advanced mode with some cool shooting modes to access via that, and again, we'll see that in additional videos that we do. In addition to this SR auto mode on this camera, which basically determines the subject, the scene, and automatically does everything for you, like a super pointy shoot camera would, You know, when you grow to become a little bit better in photography, understand lighting, understand aperture and shutter, you have those controls. You have full manual controls for both aperture and shutter speed so that you can be a little bit more creative in your photos. Now, beside the mode dial, of course, you got your left and right stereo microphone. And in addition to the built-in flash, you also have a hot shoe that supports Fuji's TTL flash, like the EF42, EF20 flashes. And really, TTL means the camera, you know, it's going to recognize what the exposure is. It's going to tell the flash how powerful to fire that flash depending on what the camera sees. And that's basically TTL. So it's automatic for you. You don't have to think about anything. Saying that, though, it can fit, you know, other non-TTL Fuji flashes. And, you know, you would have to manually set that yourself if you wanted to use your own non-Fuji flash in that instance, okay? Looking now at the back of this camera, of course, you got this beautiful LCD screen. It is a tilt screen, very similar to our HS series cameras of last year,
Love
where
those.
it allows you to sort of take photos and you can look down, or even above you, you can actually tilt that screen out, which is great. In addition to that, with these style cameras, just above it you have the electronic viewfinder, which gives you sort of a representation through the sensor and through the lens, and it really gives you that same experience as a DSLR, where, you know, you're holding it properly, it's in your eyes. And, you know, the great thing about an EVF, Greg, really is, you know, in bright sunlight, it's so simple to use. It's easier than using the LCD screen.
There's so many benefits to it. Like the first one, that to me is the most important, is putting it to the eye, holding a camera with a long zoom like this, very steady. But yeah, viewing your images for taking and for playback
Absolutely.
in bright sunlight is amazing, and it uses a lot less battery power. So
That's
if you
right.
are out on that trip or something that you're talking about, it's great to have an EVF and resist the temptation of using that big 3-inch screen and
Yeah,
use
so
the
instead of
eye
doing this or
viewfinder.
doing this, you know, if you have an EVF, take advantage of it. And, you know, this camera makes it so simple. There's actually a built-in eye sensor that switches between the two screens, so you can actually take pictures of this and look back out and see a preview afterwards if you want to see a bigger screen. And, you know, that's great. So the EVF LCD button also allows you to either always use the EVF, always use the LCD, or have the eye sensor on so it switches between the two. Beside the viewfinder, you also have that diopter adjustment. So that's great for any eyeglass wearers, where it makes it a little bit more comfortable so that you can actually really frame with the electronic viewfinder. Going across to, on the back of the camera, you have the instant record button for video. Again, you know, the full HD video, you can stop and start and stop video, which is great. It doesn't matter what shooting mode you're in, so you can be snapping around, and oh my God, I need to do a video. You can just push that, it starts, push it, and stops. And again, quick access. And this style camera is becoming a little bit more popular in the sense that it becomes a travel camera. You're not just taking photos anymore, you're also doing videos, and having that is awesome, in my personal opinion. Below that, you got your playback button. You can hold it down for a few seconds if you wanted just to turn the camera on without physically turning on the camera completely, and it allows you to sort of play back your images on the LCD screen. If you're in the shooting mode and you want to play back your images, you can push that button and then push the shutter again to go back to the shooting. Now you got your directional pad, and allows you to navigate through the menu systems up, down, left, right. There's also a menu OK button so that you can, obviously it's like your enter button on your keyboard so that you can actually engage the settings that you want to select. In addition to that, in the shooting modes, you know, they double up as, you know, access to different flash modes, self-timers, macro, and there's also even a function button that you can actually customize, whether you want to set it up to change ISO quickly or set it up to change the dynamic range settings or anything that it's, again, configurable with this camera. Now, in addition to that, in the playback mode, is also pushing up access the instant delete function, of course. And also, there's a command dial just around that directional pad so that you can use it to navigate the menus, but you can also scroll between your images by rotating that dial left and right. It's also useful for, of course, adjusting shutter speeds and aperture. And again, we'll see a top features video that shows you how to do that. Below that, you got your display back button. You know, when you go into the menus and you want to get out of it, you don't want to accidentally delete something and you want to cancel, you just push the display back button. But in the shooting mode on this camera, it toggles between the different displays, from not having any information to having shooting information to even having grid line displays on the camera, which helps personally for me for composition and to keep the horizon, you know, somewhat level to your scene. And it's a great little tool, and I like to have that on all the time. And again, that's just a quick run around on this beautiful SL1000, our first 50 times zoom, you know, camera.
Yeah, incredible. So really the cool video on this one is going to be the next one when Billy goes through the top features. So be sure to check that out because this camera is loaded with, you know, advanced photographic features, but some really, really cool technological features as well, being a brand new camera. So come back to check out that and other videos. In fact, subscribe to our YouTube channel and keep up to date that way. Follow Billy on Twitter. And until the next video, I'm Greg.
And I'm Billy.
And we're the Fuji Guys.